What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 46 of the Trainer Scoop podcast. Appreciate you all for checking the podcast out. I have a very, very special and a guest that I've been looking forward to talking to for a while. I'm joined by Trevor Fullbright. Trevor, thanks again for taking time out of your Saturday night. It's 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. He's out here on the podcast, so I appreciate you for making time, man.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
So Trevor has quite an interesting story. I've been learning more and more about him, even in the past couple of days. Basically wanted to connect with Trevor ever since seeing him active on Instagram and the Team Full Ron Forum, a Facebook group that Renaissance Periodization has kind of made an offshoot Facebook group. So definitely go check that out if you're interested in high-level training and cool discussion. But I noticed Trevor on the Full Ron Forum, and I was like, man, this guy would be perfect to talk to because I feel like you just really pursue that knowledge at a high level, Trevor. And you're also always down to help other people out, which is kind of like what I'm all about here on the podcast. So really looking forward to the talk, my man.
Should be good.
Yes, sir. But I always like to try to help the audience get to know you a little bit, get to know my guests in general. So would you mind telling everybody a little bit about yourself, kind of your fitness background, maybe just some other fun facts about you as well?
Yeah, so it's been a wild ride for me. I got into fitness and all that stuff. It's been 11 years ago now. And at the time I was actually 350 pounds and like at a really bad place in my life. And funny enough, my hairstylist at the time told me I needed to go to a gym to get my mind off some things going on in my life. So I did, and people always ask me like when I started, oh, like what'd you do? Did you do some crazy diet and all that? And when I started all this, it was literally just like I went and I walked a few days a week, and I stopped eating frozen pizza all the time because I would literally eat frozen pizzas for dinner probably at least 5 nights a week. And I mean, it would be like the 12-inch pizzas, and I would put extra cheese on them and all that stuff, and I would have like 1 or 2 of those. So just not doing that like took out a ton of calories.
Definitely.
And it's one of those things that I started, and funny enough, actually after the first like 4 or 5 months I was ready to give up, because even though I had lost I think like 50 pounds, I visually, like looking at myself in the mirror, was like, I don't look any different.
Mm-hmm.
And I had taken pictures when I started, and I took some pictures again and looked at them side by side, and I was like, oh, okay, there's a really big difference. I think I can do this. And just kind of went from there. So since then, I spent the first few years just not knowing what I was doing in the gym, really. I do whatever book somebody gave me, whatever workout was in the book, or I found in a magazine, or whatever, all kinds of like the circuit weight training things that you could find online, that this actor did this to get in shape for this movie.
Yep.
So I did those for a few years, and I actually got pretty into endurance sport for a while. I got to where I was running probably about 50 to 70 miles a week.
That's some cross country type numbers right there. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty intense, and I really loved it. But I really didn't know how to balance doing things like that and diet at the time. That was the big thing. I was eating like 1,200 calories, 1,500 calories a day. And eventually I just dug myself such a big hole that I just couldn't anymore. Hurt all the time, joint issues popping up, my ankles and knees were giving out, just chronic pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of stopped the running and got back more into lifting. And at the time, one of my friends was actually being coached by Boris Shako, if you know who that is.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he pretty elite, or like?
Yeah, he was a high level lifter at the time. He had an elite level total. And so I got to get coached by him, which was pretty cool, because it really, like, that's where I think my big interest in programming came from.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was my first experience with not just like, you know, linear strength progression 5x5 you find on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty wild. You know, crazy. If you've ever seen or done Shako programs, they are not for the faint of heart.
Yeah,
You're
man.
doing like squat, bench, back to squat, and then accessory work. So they're like 2 to 4 hour long workouts.
Yeah. That's like the most hardcore powerlifting. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, very, very
It's pretty
hardcore
intense.
powerlifting training.
Yeah. So I did that for a few years, and I kind of, while I was doing that, I stumbled across an article by Dr. Mike Isertel on Juggernaut Training Systems, and I bought their diet book. And at the time, it was, you know, basically whatever fad diet was popular at the time is what I was kind of doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading that book, and at the time, I was pretty bought into the low carb thing. And the book would be like, have 100 grams of carbs inter-workout. I was like,
Wow.
these guys are crazy. But I paid for it, and I have this thing where if I spend money on something, I'm going to try it. So I did, and I actually followed it very diligently and managed to get a six-pack for the first time in my life,
Mm-hmm.
which was pretty wild. You know, growing up the fat kid all my life, I never, ever thought I would have abs.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of got into diet with that, and I just started reading. I'm a bit obsessive compulsive, and so when there's something that interests me, I just go all in and read and read and read and read. And that's kind of how I got into doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so I've gone from every end of the spectrum of doing diets, being every end of the weight spectrum, and you know, going from training pretty high level endurance stuff to powerlifting to now bodybuilding now.
Yeah. Good mix of everything. And I feel like that's pretty cool in itself because you have such a good understanding of many different, you know, facets of fitness, which, you know, as a coach, as a trainer, that can really pay off and just helping you understand a lot of good things. As a quick aside to the audience, if you aren't driving or operating heavy machinery, you got to check out Trevor's video on YouTube with Renaissance periodization. So I remember seeing this like maybe about a year ago, I want to say, and it's some of the most intense training I've ever seen in my life. Like every set was probably like, I might have pushed like 1 or 2 sets ever in my life as hard as you went on that hack squat and that leg press.
Oh yeah,
but
man.
If you get on YouTube and you type in Renaissance periodization and Trevor Fullbright, there's like, yeah, you were with like a pro bodybuilder.
A guy named Bernardo Costa.
Okay.
And IFBB pro, and it was a wild time, man. That was intense.
Yeah, you like match his intensity and then some. It was some of the most savage training I've ever seen in my life. So
I'll actually let you know there's probably in a couple weeks there's going to be a series of some more videos of me out training with Mike and Izzy.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen the old YouTube page Powerlifting to Win, got Izzy on there.
Yeah.
And those are gonna be some crazy videos. So
oh man, I can't wait. I saw you guys talking about that in the Facebook group, and just like the fact that, you know, Izzy Powerlifting to Win was one of the first YouTube channels I came across, you know, in 2013, 2012. Like the fact that he's now doing hypertrophy focused training, or so it seems, and you know, the fact that he's in the forum is so cool just because he's kind of like, I mean, it's gonna sound stupid, but he's kind of like a legend in my eyes.
Oh man, he's an OG.
Yeah.
He's been around this game for a long time.
Yeah, so that was really cool, and man, we're looking forward for that. Those will be some cool videos, and I'm jealous that you got to check out the RP gym, man. He's got some great equipment in there.
I tell you, that's the dream. Open up a little place like that someday.
Yeah, definitely. I'm saving my money. That's my dream as well, man. But I really appreciate you giving that background. I mean, if that's not enough of a hook for you guys, I don't know what will be, because that's a really cool story in itself. But what kind of made you take that leap from being really interested, seeing the results in yourself, to kind of then like diving into it on a professional level?
So my background professionally initially is actually I'm a massage therapist,
Okay.
and I specialized in kind of a rehab setting.
Hmm.
And early on, I was introduced to kind of a setting of rehab where the uh, the goal and the point of the rehab is to get people back to moving. Um, and a lot of times, what you find is um, people create these fear-based resistances to certain movements or things where maybe have caused pain in the past. And if you actually dive into the literature on massage therapy, there's not a lot of like literature on it being useful for recovery. But one thing it can be really useful for is helping change people's perception of pain and allowing them to start to access ranges of motion where, whether it be consciously or subconsciously, they couldn't get into before, and kind of letting their body understand, letting their nervous system understand that this is safe, and then they can have a graded exposure into that. So that was what I was exposed to. So I found myself spending a lot of my time with different clients I had, uh, where we would be going over exercises. Like, yeah, we would do some of the massage stuff, then we'd be going over exercises, starting with no load, very light load, resistance bands, things like that, and getting them moving and trying to get them out of some of these kind of like protective mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, I just kind of thought, like, I had been into the whole like working out and fitness thing for a few years at this point, and I was like, man, I kind of am interested in doing this whole personal training thing too, and kind of blending these maybe a little bit more congruently than I currently am now. So I was able to start that, and at the time, I actually currently work at a private training studio, uh, and the owner is actually an MD. And I knew him, and he gave me a call, and he was like, I'm looking to bring on another trainer, and I know your background, I know your experience. What do you think about coming on here? And so it was kind of a really good opportunity for me to use that as a jumping off point to get into personal training as a career.
Mm-hmm.
And because I love working like with athletes and stuff, but it's really, really cool and satisfying as well to like take a person that's like, oh man, I can't do that because I've got all these injuries and stuff, and then in a couple months have them, being able to squat, or heck, even as some clients, like be able to get up out of a chair on their own.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. That's okay. Yeah, I'm starting to see some connections here. It's also funny just because, like, as a complete aside, you train to some of like the fullest range of motion that I see
Yeah.
on a typical basis. I feel like that's something that a lot of people kind of sleep on, is using massage therapy in that way. Like a lot of people, me personally, sometimes I'll just go in for like a nice relaxing experience. You might
Yeah.
get some sore muscles relaxed a little bit, but definitely I feel like injuries that I've had, you are afraid of that pain, and it probably just gets worse the less you kind of mobilize that certain area
Yeah.
in most cases. So very cool.
And there's a lot of things that go into that, both like kind of like mentally and stuff too. Generally, you find athletes are better at it because you get an athlete and they're just going to do what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of like regular people, maybe not so much. And man, I'll tell you, one of my big pet peeves now, but when I was in massage therapy, more like working at a place doing it, is people would come in and they'd have, my back hurts, my shoulder hurts, I can't reach to pick up something in my car, things like that. And they would come for 6 months, they would come for a year, every single week. And they never got worse, but they also never got better.
Mhm.
And it's kind of an aside note from the whole fitness thing, but that's a big issue I have with the massage therapy industry as a whole.
Mhm.
Is it's this just over and over, bring them in, take them through the farm of it, where it's like, look, if someone's coming to you because they're in pain and you can't give them help in a matter of a few weeks, you need to be like referring them out. If they're coming to you because they want to relax and all that, cool, totally different thing. But a lot of massage therapists are really bad about kind of going outside of their scope of practice and trying to do things and saying things that they legally shouldn't even say.
Yeah, definitely. It gets the ball rolling for me, because I typically do go to one of my clients is a massage therapist too. So I can,
Oh, don't have them listen to this podcast.
no, I think she does a good job of it. Like, we're always trying to figure out new ways to like address any issues that I might have. And yeah, I feel like you do see some of that though. And I can see how it's like the perfect business model, because you keep people coming in the door again and again. You give them that temporary relief.
Yeah,
But
I always made the joke that I had a terrible business model because I would get people to where they didn't see me every week.
yeah,
But to me, it was more satisfying, and honestly, it got me a lot more word of mouth than other people.
yeah, yeah. So there's definitely that upside to it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So kind of transitioning from your background, you got this personal training thing going. I've seen that you do some online coaching as well. But what does like a typical day in the life of Trevor Fullbright look like?
Oh boy, so I can get. If you want me to totally break it down, I can.
Go for it, dude.
So I wake up at 5 a.m. every day. And first thing I do is a few days a week, I coach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the mornings. And if I'm not coaching, I'm just going to a class.
Mm-hmm.
So I do Jiu-Jitsu first thing in the morning, come home, and I have a couple hours at home, kind of get a meal in, maybe relax a little bit. And then I'm either going to train clients or train myself, and then doing vice versa, whichever I didn't do.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So depending on what my schedule is, when the first client is that day, I'll train myself before or after. I'll do that, probably spend maybe 3 hours total. Come home, get another meal in, make a couple meals up for the day, and then I go to the little studio I train at as well. And I'll train clients there for another 6 or so hours, and then leave there, and I'm back to the gym for another workout.
Nice. Okay.
And then home, relax with my wife, eat dinner, kick back, go to bed, and repeat it all the next day.
Nice.
So I have a very boring, monotonous life, and I kind of like it that way.
Right. I feel it. Hey, sounds pretty productive though. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can't remember exactly, but I remember you hearing you talk about it in the podcast. You're pretty high level jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I just got my brown belt in January.
Yeah. So there's like 3 additional levels or 2?
So it's white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt.
Okay. Got you.
And it's crazy. I get to train with some of the best people in the state.
Yeah.
And it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy sport.
Yeah. That's very cool. And just like a good skill to have in general too.
Yeah.
I hear more.
Want to try it at least.
Yeah. Like I hear more and more people getting into it. And it's like, it almost like goes synonymous with like, this is going to sound weird, but I feel like a lot of like successful people get into it. Like everyone from Joe Rogan, like Dr. Mike, like people who I deem successful or on top of their shit.
A little side of it. One thing that's great about jiu-jitsu is you cannot do jiu-jitsu if you do not let go of your ego and accept the willingness to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, kind of like you said, successful people tend to, they're not afraid to take the role of the student.
Yeah.
You get somebody with a big ego that thinks they're, the biggest, toughest guy in the room. They think they know it all and whatnot like that. in regular daily life, maybe you just don't succeed as well as you could. You go to jiu-jitsu, you're going to get broken.
Yeah. Yeah. Like one of my goals is to own a gym. I feel like one of the requisite to be a member is like, you have to go through some basic jiu-jitsu training. That'll eliminate like the gym douchebag stereotype. They won't even be out there.
I'm not going to lie. There are certain times when I really wish somebody would try to start someone with me at the gym, just because I'm like, you're a tool. You were such a tool.
Right. Oh man. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Especially as I've been going back to commercial gyms. Yeah, it's tough out here. But awesome, dude. I feel like the audience and even myself get some insights into you and into your life. So definitely appreciate that. But getting into some more specific questions. One thing that I notice about you, Trevor, and yeah, like really respect and admire it too, is just your willingness to engage with your audiences and just with other people that are passionate about fitness, whether it be on Instagram, those constant Q&As, the Team Full Run, you're there just about every post, trying to help people out. So what's kind of the driving force for that for you?
I mean, honestly, I like to help. I like to do it. But one thing for me is it keeps me learning.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to be challenged, I want people to ask me, I want to make myself think. And I find that, doing the Instagram Q&As, being in the Team Full Run group and answering questions, it forces me to think. And sometimes it forces me to stop and think.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's something I'm maybe not the best at, is stopping and thinking. So it kind of forces me to do that, take a moment. And if I don't know something, I become obsessed with finding out.
Yeah.
I want to know. And so it makes me reach out of my comfort zone of the things maybe I know really well, look into it. Okay, I don't know this very well. What can I do to improve my knowledge here? How can I learn more about this? And I can go and I can do that on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big reason why I do it, is it just, I feel like it kind of keeps me sharp and keeps me learning and on my toes. And then being in the group and stuff, and, you have guys like Dr. Mike, Jared, and Charlie. I know they're also going to call me out if I am talking out my ass.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of nice. Is I don't want, I never want anybody, whether it be a colleague, a client, I never want somebody to view me as somebody infallible.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm wrong, I want to be called out.
Yeah.
I think that the yes man mentality that sometimes people have, and some people in the fitness world seem to want, I think is a really terrible thing, and it sets a very dangerous precedent.
Definitely, man. I feel like that is potentially one of the biggest issues in the fitness industry, is just like prescribing to one method of training or diet and then never asking questions or never questioning what could be better. That's something I fell into early on in the game, and I was doing all kinds of wild nutrition and training programs. So
I mean, and that's the thing, is I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there and I've made those mistakes. And so I want to help people not do that.
100%. 100%.
But it's so easy to fall into that. Both for people online in a position of influence, and then to fall into guruism. And it's really easy for people that don't know better to necessarily just fall into the trap of it.
Yeah.
So I think as people like us who are professionals within this, I think we need to seek out those people that will call us out.
Mm-hmm.
So that we never fall into that guruism trap.
Yeah.
Because it keeps us honest with ourselves.
Yeah, that's a really good way.
How can we be honest with our clients and the people we're trying to reach if we don't have someone to kind of keep us in check?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the approach. I feel like, to go back to your point of it kind of keeps you on your toes, keeps you learning, the way you engage with your audience, that is, at a certain point, when you kind of have everything established with your personal training, online coaching, you get a lot of the same questions. Like, it might be like, oh, like, how can I make sure I train to the right proximity of failure to failure? This, kind of not basic, but the standard questions that you might get from a client. And by continuously opening up that window to, have that conversation, have people ask questions, that's a great idea to stay fresh with it, keep it enjoyable, keep it stimulative for your learning. So I really like that, man. That's going to be a big takeaway for
talking
me.
about the basic stuff, it's really easy for us people who are maybe more entrenched in this and more advanced to forget not everyone knows. And sometimes you get tired of having the same question for the 20th time this week, but you gotta be willing to put on the smile and explain it. And it's kind of nice when different people are asking the question, because some people respond to different inputs of how you explain it to them.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to get it the same way, and so having different individuals ask you the same question can really help you learn how to respond to different personality types and different types of people.
Yeah. And that's just such a valuable skill to have, as whether it's a teacher or coach, personal trainer. Being able to kind of, well, there's a certain word for it, but basically being able to say things and help a variety of learners learn that way is important. Other than Renaissance periodization, of course, what are some of your go-to learning sources for all things training, nutrition, everything like that?
So if we're, obviously RP, over the years, I've become pretty close with the guys and the team over at RP, but some other people, like if you're interested in powerlifting, Juggernaut Training Systems, Chad Wesley Smith, that website, there's so much free information on that website. They have amazing YouTube videos on some of the technique stuff. Also in powerlifting would be Kabuki Strength, Chris Duffin. The dude is absurdly strong, and he's got some really great information on some of the technical aspects of lifting. So if you're looking for some of the powerlifting stuff, those are great options. One that in the lifter circles doesn't get enough recognition, but should, is Alex Viada of what is it? Hybrid Performance, I think.
Oh, yeah.
He has the book, The Hybrid Athlete. That is a book that more people should read, just to understand energy systems and some of the differences of the adaptations from cardiovascular training and resistance training. It's a great place to start some of that.
Yeah.
So those are great resources.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask you. So I know you have to go through, like, what is it, 2 or 3 years of schooling for massage therapy, where you learn some anatomy and certain things like that. But did you ever get like a real formal education on on these things, or is it something you just picked up over time?
So no, my extent of formal education would be massage school, where I did have to learn anatomy and physiology. I had to learn biomechanics and a lot of that stuff. And so I'll leave it there. But as far as some of the things like with resistance training and the different energy systems and the adaptations that take place and some of the chemical pathways and whatnot, that's just my obsessive compulsive nature, where when I find something, I just read over and over again. And I've just mostly been self-taught on all of that.
Yeah.
At this point, I've, good or bad, read thousands of books on everything training and nutrition related.
Right. That's impressive, man. Like, to give a little bit about me, like I did, a 4-year, it was basically like a undergraduate Bachelor of Science that made you a glorified personal trainer. So I did get really dove into the exercise physiology portion of those things. But even, I graduated from college in 2019, so I'm a couple years out. I love just going back into those textbooks and, reading about the flow of ions that happens when a muscle contracts, like,
Yeah.
It's stuff that it's like, maybe you don't have to know it to be a great personal trainer, but it's cool to know. And, it just gives you that deeper level of understanding for those things. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I'm a nerd at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
everything in my life, I'm a huge nerd. So I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whether you need to know it, not necessarily. I mean, not to be a successful personal trainer, you don't necessarily need to know it. I think it's good to know it though.
Definitely.
And I think that getting textbooks, even if you're not going to go necessarily through college and you're just getting a personal training certification, you can buy these textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a great idea. You can buy some of the textbooks on exercise physiology, exercise science. You can buy some of the textbooks on periodization models and things like that, clinical nutrition. They're out there. So the information is out there, even if you aren't going to a traditional 4-year degree college.
Yeah, 100%. And even if, let's say I 100% agree that those textbooks are valuable. Even like, let's say you buy like the 2019 edition to save a little bit of money, like that's still going to be a great source. I'll never forget like the first day of class, I was just like sitting by somebody and like befriended him. And he was like, yo, what's your email? And he dropped me like the link for this textbook that would have cost me like $170 on the last XPhys class that I took. So I was like, oh, sweet. So there's definitely ways to do it too.
Yeah, there's ways to do it. And yeah, I mean, if you know some people who know some people,
But
you can get some help.
I really like that tip, man. Just learning it from like the source and the science. Yeah, I feel like this was, I talked about this in the past for the podcast too, but like, I was involved in some research. I feel like you'll appreciate this. So in this in this study, I was basically, we got my 1 rep max for squat, and then I had to do 6x10 at 80% of that. And it was awful, bro. It was like,
good God.
Yeah, we had to drop the load over like after the third set. I couldn't.
Oh God, yeah, I no doubt. 6x10 at 80% where you're starting.
Hardest workout.
Oh, nobody's gonna get through that.
Yeah,
80%.
hardest workout I've ever done. But they were like analyzing if float tank therapy could be a good recovery modality, which was pretty interesting. There was a very extensive study with, blood drawings and jumping on a force plate. So that was pretty cool to see it all in action too. It's like the nerd side really comes out.
Yeah.
What's a topic or a couple of topics that come to mind that you want to continue your learning on?
Well, I tell you what, I have a buddy, I'll shout him out real quick, a guy named Caleb. He is currently in school for, I believe, exercise physiology, and he was talking to me about a study he wants to do looking at myo reps and cluster set type training in general on hypertrophy. So I am really interested on keeping in touch with him as he tries to get this study set up and off the ground and seeing where that goes.
Yeah.
I think that is, as on a personal level, I think that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gets into the whole effective reps thing, which, I'm not entirely sold on the effective reps model, but I do think there are valid points to it. Mm-hmm. So I think it'd be really interesting to compare from like a hypertrophy standpoint, maybe compare straight sets, more of a traditional like powerlifting style cluster set, and like a myo rep style rest pause set, and see what the difference is between those.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a great idea. I hope he can get funding and, get the green light for that one. Cause it is, it's something that we do all the time, kind of under this, RP offshoot training, training ideology.
Yeah.
And those multiple approaches to failure. I mean, it's really challenging. You get a little bit of that metabolite accumulation, and that'll be interesting to see. But I do question it as well. Like, is it that much more beneficial for like the pain, or yeah, I mean, how it is. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it that makes it like quote unquote worth it. But that's a good idea, man. Hey, I feel like he's got a subject right there in you. If
right, I'm already telling him like, hey, you need a subject, you hit me up, I'm ready.
Yep, that's really cool. Nice. Yeah. I feel like for me, you mentioned biomechanics. That's one area in my glorified personal training degree that it was a little light on. Whereas like exercise science specific students got like the physics and all of that. I had more of like a nutrition and exercise science with some like health promotion or, general psychology in my degree. So when people really nerd out on like strength curves and the whole debate that went down
Oh God,
of like bands and reverse bands. That's one area where I'm like, oh man, I can't really contribute to this, but I like to learn about it, and I'm definitely gonna have to pick up a textbook.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'm one thing I definitely want to see more on is the whole lengthen range, mid range, full range, all that stuff. Kind of like, really are we really getting the large majority of the hypertrophy stimulus from that tension at the length and range? Can we do most of our training there? I think that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. Whether I will change my own training very much, I don't know. I don't know if you've ever done like they're like 1.5 rep hack squats where you go down all the way, come up halfway, go back down, and come back up. Those are awful.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most painful things you'll ever do in your life. I don't know if I'm ballsy enough to do that regularly.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to see where all that stuff goes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember doing that in a John Meadows program that my first introduction.
Where I first saw him back in the day, one of John Meadows' programs.
Yeah.
That John Meadows was the guy that initially got me interested in bodybuilding.
Really?
I saw him, I saw his legs, and I was like, that looks crazy.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, man. Definitely lost a good one on that one.
Yeah, that one got me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, definitely. But definitely looking forward to see where everything goes. Still a lot to learn. And a lot more research to be done. So very cool, very cool. Kind of pivoting off of that, one question that I had just like on a personal level is like, how did you get connected with, like you did the podcast with Nick Shaw and like the RP, then you got the training videos with Dr. Mike. How did that initially form?
Yeah. So around the time, they released their diet book, and I got it pretty early on, like I think maybe within the first month they released it. And I had a lot of success with it. And it was, around December, January the next year. This was like October or something. September, January next year, they released their original version of their diet templates. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this and try it out. I was actually trying to cut weight for a powerlifting meet at the time. And so I did it, had a super, super successful cut. And actually, interestingly, they did a transformation challenge like they do every year these days. But back then it was much smaller. We're talking the RP Facebook group, which is now like, I don't know, 50,000 people, was like maybe 1,000. But anyway, I was actually one of the first winners for the transformation challenge.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's sweet.
Yeah. And so, just through online discourse, kind of talking to Mike a little bit here and there, talking to Nick a little bit here and there. I actually went to a seminar in Fort Worth, Texas, where Mike and James Hoffman were there with Dr. Quinn Hinnock and Chad Wesley Smith. It's kind of at the tail end of my powerlifting days. And so I actually got to meet Mike and James in person there. And it kind of opened up a bit of a channel of more discourse online over the years. And it's just one of those things that as I've been around over the years, answering questions and whatnot, they've just kind of reached out to me, asked me to help out with things here and there. And I've been able to kind of develop a little bit of a friendship with some of these guys over the years because of it.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. That would be an awesome conference to go to. That's like, some of the best names. I mean, at least in my book, some of the best names out there. So that's really cool.
One question I get asked a lot when people hear about like my training and like doing jujitsu and all this stuff. They're how like how do you do so much? How do you organize your training? I like lucked out hardcore. When I went to this was early on, like I'd been doing jujitsu for like 3 months. And I got to actually talk to James and ask him like, how would you kind of structure training to have all of this together? And he helped me solidify an idea and a structure of how to have it all set up together to have jujitsu and weightlifting and all these things together.
Yeah.
And so I really looked out to be able, I mean, James is the recovery expert.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to talk to him about kind of how to set some of this up to be able to maximize my recovery still and be able to reform.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, I feel like Dr. James, man, in terms of organizing mesocycle, macrocycle, and having it relate over to like sports performance, like you said, recovery, balancing multiple activities, he's the man. Like,
oh yeah, dude. He might not have the personality of Mike, but
right?
Yeah, he's the man. We need more James Hoffman.
Yeah. In my senior year of undergrad, I remember, of course, going through school. I didn't necessarily love every aspect of school because I felt like not a lot of people actually lifted.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, I've heard that from a few of my friends who are in like exercise science programs that they're one of the very few people who lifts.
Yeah. And I feel like different schools have like their research and, their graduate department focuses on other things, like University of South Florida. They're like the hypertrophy lab or whatever. So obviously, that's going to be a good place to be if you're into training. But like Ohio State, where I went, it was like some of the top researchers on keto and endurance training and like training in different environments. So like
okay,
hiking up Mount Everest or something.
That's kind of interesting though. Like, it doesn't fit our biases, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The keto stuff, I'm gonna leave that alone.
Right. But I remember seeing Dr. James make a video about like how to create a macro cycle, and he just like mapped it all out on Excel. And I just was like studying for something, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go ahead and just like make my next macro cycle and plan this out up until like 1 a.m. just designing out a training program. So yeah, that's a really cool thing. And like the fact that Chad Wesley Smith and Dr. Mike are also pretty competitive in jiu-jitsu as well. Like that's kind of like the perfect storm, man. Awesome.
Yeah, man. Just as a side note, I could not imagine walking on the mats of a tournament and having either Mike or Chad Wesley Smith across from me. I'd be like, I tap.
Yeah. Definitely, man. Yeah. I can't wait to see more. Like, Dr. Mike talks about in the future how he really wants to pursue mixed martial arts after he's done bodybuilding. I'll be like, man, that would be pretty cool to see. I'll still be following along. Awesome though. What was kind of like the reason for you switching from powerlifting to more like hypertrophy bodybuilding style training?
So when I started powerlifting, I think it was a thing where I just felt lost in my own training and I didn't really know, I didn't have a direction. And this was also at the time when, like, if you were on online fitness at all, powerlifting was the thing. Powerlifting is what you had to do. You want to be big, you got to powerlift.
Squat, bench, deadlift.
Strong, you got to powerlift. You got to get strong in the big three. It's still there now, but it's less so. But it's like, if you train for a pump, you're stupid. Doing high reps is stupid. You got to do 10 sets of 3. That's how you get jacked. And so it was kind of like, it's what everyone talked about, and I had somebody to help me with it. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do this. And eventually I just, whether it be fatigue management issue or genetics, or I have a lot of old injuries from when I was younger that would crop up. I was just beat up all the time, like all the time. So I actually, I had a chronic nerve impingement issue that every time I would deadlift, I could barely walk the next day. I actually had a subluxed femur when I squatted. Like at the bottom of a
Wow.
squat, it was I was testing 1 rep maxes to get ready for a peak for a powerlifting meet, and my femur subluxed at the bottom of the squat.
Jeez, man.
And I was kind of just like, why am I doing this? And I kind of stopped for a minute. I was like, I kind of hate powerlifting training. Like, it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I really like getting a pump. I remember, like, whether they were good workouts or not, doing like the magazine bodybuilder workouts and getting a sick pump, and John Meadows workouts, that he had on his website and whatnot. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to powerlift anymore. I had started jujitsu at the time, so I kind of had a different competitive outlet for myself. And I was just like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
it just became a thing where the thing that was more fun for me won out.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm kind of similar in the same way, man, because I came on the scene of really getting into working out and training in like 2012, 2013. So of course, like you said, all the big names, you had like Johnny Candido, like
Yep.
everybody was powerlifting.
Had Izzy.
Yeah, I think it, like, especially you, and I mean, I'm not even trying to toot my own horn, but like I try to aspire to this level. But like guys like us that maybe got into powerlifting and weren't like super strong, not like outliers, but decent numbers, whatever. Like that, the focus on form and like perfecting every minutia detail that you could to try to get as optimal results as possible. It's paying off now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like I said, like you have some of the most, impeccable full romp, great looking squats, great looking stiff leg deadlifts, stuff like that. Like I feel like at least for me, some of that comes from powerlifting training. So
Yeah. No, I think that there's some really, like, back then, I hugely credit Mike and RP crew as a whole for bringing the idea of periodization to bodybuilding, to that
mm-hmm.
world, because that's been in the powerlifting world for years. Powerlifters knew what periodization was. Powerlifters knew the importance of fatigue management and accumulation blocks and things like that. But in bodybuilding at the time, at least what you mostly heard about was you either have you go hard, you train every step to failure, you're a pussy if you do anything that's not failure, why are you in the gym, you're wasting your time. Or you had to go in there, get a huge pump, weight doesn't matter, just squeeze the muscle as hard as you can, sort of thing. And there's merits to both, but there's two sides of the extreme. There's probably something in the middle that's going to be the most close to the truth.
100%.
We see that's so many places in lives where you have the two extremes. The truth is generally somewhere in the middle of the extremes.
Yeah.
So I really credit Mike to bringing that to, like, kind of showing how you apply that. Well, and the whole RP crew, but showing how you apply that to physique training, to hypertrophy training, where now it's synonymous. Like, everybody knows, what training through RAR is, what a mesocycle is. 5 years ago, there was like 10 bodybuilders on the planet who knew what a mesocycle was.
Yeah.
Everyone does now. And I think that the RP crew as a whole really drove that one home. Also the 3DMJ crew too, but I think that for whatever reason, I think that kind of Mike was able to drive that even further.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Kind of have a curveball.
The whole point of all that was to say that that initial background of powerlifting training and like focusing on technique to try to maximize, what we were doing at the time, that attention to detail, it can carry over and be super helpful in bodybuilding.
Yeah. 100%. I think that's kind of why I latched on to like the RP philosophies as much as I did, is because I had that background of like, periodization, understanding the intricacies of program design over time. And then
Mhm.
like it just so happened that like during the time of like the shutdown, I saw Dr. Mike's videos a lot more prevalently because they were just grinding out videos. It's insane.
Yeah.
And seeing how he was applying these concepts. I was, living in New Jersey at the time. So I was driving down to Iron Sport where they used to shoot videos. I'm like, man, it was just like a cool period of time. And I think you
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head there. The way they kind of bridge that gap. Very cool. I have a curveball question for you, man. So, and if it's like, if the answer doesn't necessarily come, all good. But like, what would you say to someone who is kind of like resistant? Like, let's say they have a great physique, they're resistant to the idea of applying some of those scientific principles to their program. Maybe they go about it with a bro split. They're like, this works. Why would I ever change? How would you address that if you wanted to at all?
I've addressed this with people before. I asked them why. I asked them why, why is it you're doing what you're doing? And I asked them, okay, well, you enjoy it. You've grown like this. Well, how long have you been doing it? Well, you've been doing it for 5 years. Well, how's your progression been for the last 6 months, the last year? And if they can't answer me, I tell them, what harm does it do in trying?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know if something is going to work or not if you won't try it? And some people are just still completely resistant to it. And honestly, the people that are, hey, man, you do you. More power to you. But I think that if anyone is at least even a little bit of a critical thinker, they'll stop and think, okay, maybe they're right.
Yeah.
And it's fun taking people who maybe have a thought process in their head of what it's going to be like. So the place I train at is actually like the NPC IFBB gym of Oklahoma.
Really? Very cool.
Yeah. So a lot of competitors, a lot of big egos. And I've got to take a few people through even just kind of teaching them leg training.
Oh man, I bet that's a rude awakening.
It's fun. Some people are super receptive. Just a couple weeks ago, I had a guy that was like, man, I'm watching you in here doing that. And that's just like, what's your training based off of? And, why are you doing this? And he just had all these questions. And like, I sat there and talked to him for like 20 minutes and stuff. And like, I was like, give this a shot. I gave him some tips on how to do it. I said, if I'm here, you just find me. I'll be more than happy to come help you out, give you some cues. But at the same time, I've had other guys where I'm like, okay, your legs aren't growing. Hop in with a leg workout with me. I'm going to take you through it. We're going to start on leg press. And I get them to do a single set full range of motion, and they've literally quit.
Oh, yeah.
So, you can lead, what's the saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely in like a setting like that, you realize you don't need that second peg of like the weight tree on the leg press to load all those extra plates when you're doing it the way you do it.
I actually have a very recent story, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm sure this guy was never going to hear this podcast. Me and one of my buddies were training legs like 2 weeks ago. And if you ever look at my Instagram and you look at our leg press setup, we've got this deck out. It's not very good leg press. So we've done all kinds of stuff to it to make it better. So we're a couple sets in, and this guy comes up, and he's like, how many sets you guys got left? And we're like, man, we each got 2 sets left. I was like, you're more than welcome to work in, dude. I'm perfectly happy to let you. And he kind of looked. He's like, okay, I'll go ahead and work in. We had like 405 on there. And so we asked him, we were like, all right, man, what weight do you want on here? Kind of thinking he would ask for less because it wasn't exactly big legs. But I've seen this guy. He's the dude that's in here squatting 3 plates in like a 6-inch range of motion. So he's like, well, normally I do like 8 plates a side, but I'll just do this with you guys. I'm like, okay. So he gets down there and I'm like, all right, hey, grab this bar here so you can really pull yourself down, get your feet up here. And he goes for a rep and he immediately takes it further down than he's ever taken a rep before in his life, probably. Gets stuck. We have to push the thing off of him, help him rack it. And he just gets up. He's like, I'll just skip leg press today. And he leaves.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. It is one of those things. It's kind of like, I hope that the dude would, maybe see our legs being significantly larger than his, think, maybe I should ask some questions. But, what are you going to do?
Right. No, that's a really good way to frame it, though. Definitely something that I've had the topic like brought up in conversation with some of my friends. And, I'm just like, one of my friends was really big on the like top set intensity technique, which I'm like, cool, man. That's I like that from time to time. But I'm like, what if you just try like a couple more like sets with more volume? And it wins out over time. So that's very cool that you're kind of in that setting. And man, I feel like you could even be like a good ambassador over time with that, because like in that video, just seeing you hang there with the intensity that the dude that was a pro brought, like, I feel like it's got to command some type of respect. Maybe, you're not blessed with the same genetics to look that crazy, but it's something.
It's kind of cool. I've gotten some props from some pros in the gym before, so it's kind of cool.
It's a good feeling. And I feel like
that's one thing about like the whole like, oh, we're going to war, brother, iron game. Like, it's all a big joke and whatever. But there is a level of respect that I think most lifters have for each other, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And man, I hope that in the future it can kind of, I'd love to see those type of training techniques brought over to, your more typical IFBB demographic, because, we're running into issues of people passing away from blasting drugs. What if there was another thing that you could control your training, switch that around, see if there's any, marginal improvement within that wouldn't make it so they had to do certain things to be successful in the sport. So it's just, whole can of worms right there, but something to think about too. So it's pretty cool to think about.
When it comes to the training, you got Jared out there doing God's work.
Oh yeah.
Introducing that world to training they've probably never done before.
No. Oh, I can attest to that personally, because Joe and Brianni used to go to the gym that, in Columbus.
Oh, I've heard about the whole thing. Yeah.
Weren't doing that, man. They it wasn't, I mean, they more strictly powerlifting only back then, but like, that's cool. That's a cool training group. Those two together, that's pretty cool.
Dude, yeah. Jared and Bree together, I love it. Jared, I hate him because he makes me get on TikTok more often because he posts on TikTok.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, he's really working to he's talked about some of his reasons for getting into that side, the IFBB side and whatnot, and I think it's super cool to see him doing that and like being an ambassador for the science, scientific training in that world where not exactly been a lot of it in the past.
Yeah, 100%. More cool things to come. We got research and we got like the IFBB side. So I feel like there's still plenty of things to be discovered and implemented into this stuff. So awesome. Do you have any, I know you kind of got that competitive itch scratched through mixed martial arts and stuff like that, but do you ever plan to compete in bodybuilding, or has that ever been on your mind?
Oh yeah, dude, I've thought about it multiple times. I don't know that I will. It's something that I think is super cool and I would like to probably at some point, but I will also admit I have no delusions that I do not have the greatest of genetics in the world. My wife is glaring at me.
She's like, "You're jacked. What are you talking about?"
I'm covered in stretch marks and I have loose skin. And so, I'm at some point, I want to step on stage because I want to say I've done it. I've done a bunch of things just because I'm like, I just want to say I've done it. But whether it be something I like actively pursue, I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, I feel that, man. I feel like for me, it's very similar. I want to just say that I've done it, and kind of, I feel like definitely competing in several powerlifting meets for me also helped feel qualified and, feel confident in coaching people to meets.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's a level of that. I have coached a handful of girls to some local shows, but yeah, whether I'd feel comfortable taking someone all the way to a show, I'm not even sure about that.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of have like a natural show picked out for 2023. So I'm like, I'm gonna send it. It might not be the prettiest thing, but hey, it'll be the experience. We'll see if I want to keep pursuing it from there. Still got time, so definitely. But I've had you on for almost an hour, man. So I kind of want to wrap it up, be respectful of your Saturday night, let you get to spending some time with the wife and everything. But to kind of close it out, what are some of, if you were to come just straight off the top of your head, what are some of the advice that you would give to like general population who are interested in training and kind of want to take it to the next level?
Looking at like we'll call them hobbyist bodybuilders. Hobbyist bodybuilders, hobbyist powerlifters. First bit of information, don't get too caught up in the social media game. It's really easy to constantly compare yourself to the people you're seeing online, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. And we have to understand that these people are, one, not always looking like that in a lot of cases. And two, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I think the whole natty or not culture is ridiculous and needs to stop. But whether someone is or not, we might not know. But we also don't know what mental health issues they're dealing with because of the things they're doing, and what health concerns they're having to deal with. And so when we get really wrapped up in that, it gives us a sense of not being worth enough. I've dealt with this myself, where I look at, open up Instagram and I look at there and I see these guys and I'm like, man, why do I even bother? Like, I'm never going to be big enough. I'm never going to be lean enough. I'm never going to be strong enough. And, sometimes you just have to take a step back and be like, man, this is a journey for myself. So that's like one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give the hobbyist lifter. Something maybe a little bit more practical to lifting is a theme I see a lot is overthinking. And by that, I mean people that are always questioning, is this the best exercise? Is this the reps in reserve I was wanting to do? Is this the best set numbers I should be doing? Should I be doing, going from 10 to 20 sets a week? Or, how many sets should I do at the end of my mesocycle? And it's like, eventually you just got to try, man. Like, do it for 2 months. See how you feel doing that exercise. Do you get good pumps? Do you get good soreness? Do you feel good tension? It's a good exercise for you. It doesn't mean it's going to be a good exercise for me or the next guy or the next guy or the next guy, but it's a good exercise for you. And when people are like, well, what about how many sets should I do? And I'm like, are you sore when you train again? If you're not sore at all, and you completely recovered, weren't sore, waking up that day, do another set. If you were sore, don't do another set. If you were so sore you can't move, do less sets. You eventually have to just try. Same with RIR. People really, really worry about like, oh, is this the right RIR? I see people ask this question all the time. Like, what do you think this RIR was, guys? I think it was a 1 RIR. What do you think? Should I have done more? I'm like, if you're really concerned, try again next week. And when you're at the end of your mesocycle, if it's a safe movement, bury yourself. Then you know. And you don't have to constantly second guess yourself. And understand, at the end of the day, if it's a 2 RIR or a 1 RIR or a 1 RIR or a 0 RIR, the difference is super small.
Yeah.
as long as you're getting those little incremental wins every time.
That's really good stuff, man. Yeah. Oh, social media is like a blessing and a curse because it's such a great platform to share information and maybe gather some motivation when you're first getting started out. But I feel like everybody, and then the extent of it can differ, but everybody falls in that trap of comparison, that classic saying, comparison's the thief of joy. So
Well, man, I'll tell you, have you ever heard of Goob U?
Yeah.
He's been all around Facebook recently, or Instagram recently. So
Man,
he's been doing a thing, exposing people for editing photos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if anyone's really buying into the whole social media thing, they should check out his page and see how much stuff is not real on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's very true. I have seen one of his videos. It took me a second to recall it, but yeah, that's pretty crazy. And man, to kind of add one additional little thought to your second point of not overcomplicating things or stressing too much. I was of that exact camp when I was, I still kind of am, but like a couple years younger, it was bad. And I started working with a trainer right after I graduated because I'm like, oh man, I'm about to be a trainer, but I never worked with a trainer. So someone that I trusted, someone that was pretty reputable, and it was the most basic programming, but it was carried like out very well. So like, I was like, man, we're doing like 5 movements. They're all like the tried and true things. I was like, but where's the secret sauce? And over time I realized, oh, just like doing these basics with the right intention and the right effort, that's what got me a lot stronger at the time. And that was kind of like, oh man, I've been stressing way too much about some dumb stuff. So that's a really good point, man.
Yeah.
To kind of close her out, being the trainer scoop, do you have any advice for up and coming trainers, maybe people that are just getting into it, people that have been in it for a year or two? What are some of your thoughts?
Well, I'll tell you one big pet peeve I have as of recently, and it kind of goes back to something you brought up earlier. Understanding who your clients are and what their needs are. And a lot of trainers do a very bad job at this. By this, I mean, you have your average 35, 40-year-old soccer mom coming to you. She wants to lose 20 or 30 pounds. Why are you having her do some ridiculous one arm, very lat specific, lat region, pull down, and, you're having her, do this lateral head tricep extension? It's dumb. They don't need that. You are making things ridiculously overcomplicated for what that person needs. And we're forgetting who that client is.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a person that comes to you and they're like a high-level bodybuilder and they're like, I need to bring my lateral triceps and my lower lats up, sure, break out all the fancy stuff.
Yeah.
You have a general population person who just wants to improve their health, get a little stronger, look a little bit better, and has 3 hours to work out a week. You don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
You get them doing some basic movements, get them working hard, make sure their technique is right, and go to town. And that's a big thing. And another thing kind of on the same line is like understand where your clients are at and what their needs are at the given time. A friend of mine who's a trainer and I had this conversation not too long ago. Sometimes you get a new client and there's a kind of this back and forth that comes up occasionally. Is like, when you get a new client, should you teach them, how to do a basic, barbell squat and deadlift and all that stuff like that? You got to get them to learn the big basic barbell movements first. And like, that's great and all, but who's your client and what do they need at that moment? And I was talking to my friend because I had a client who mid-60s, recently diagnosed with diabetes, and he needed to start doing something to control his blood sugar levels. I wasn't going to spend the next 3 months teaching him how to do a barbell squat and a barbell bench press and a barbell deadlift. What I did was, all right, we're going to do a hack squat where I can put you in here and it's safe and it's a stable movement and it's easy to learn. And we're going to get you working hard. I'm going to put you in a machine chest press where I can teach you real quick. This is how you retract your shoulder blades and then you press. And he can, day one, start working hard and start making a progress on his goal at the time. And I think a lot of trainers miss that. We need to understand who our clients are and what their goals are, and understand there are multiple ways to get to different goals.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Kind of avoiding your own biases is really important. And that's something I definitely did exactly what you said when I first started out. One of my friends that's a little bit younger, I just had to straight up tell him, like, I might butcher this phrase, but it's like you're missing the forest for the trees or something like that, right? Yep. You're missing the big picture, essentially. He was making this post about like lateral raises in the sagittal plane, and you know, he's like a gen pop trainer. So I'm like, hey man, like,
yeah, no, exactly. You see this all the time on Instagram where these like general population trainers are doing this like super in-depth, like, you know, pose. And like, look, are you trying to reach other fitness professionals or are you trying to reach your clientele base?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're trying to reach your clientele base, I guarantee you nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about why doing a lateral raise, you know, directly to the side versus in the scapular plane is, you know, one's better, one's worse. You ask a regular person on the street what a deltoid is, they're going to look at you like you're an alien.
100%. You know? Yeah, it's something that I've had on my mind, because I feel like a lot of my in-person people, you know, they're the exact scenario that you explained of, you know, just wanting to drop some weight. Whereas like with my online, I'm trying to kind of branch over to a little bit more advanced people, just because that's more enjoyable.
Yeah, I will say that that's a thing. I think as for most trainers, that's going to be how it goes. Is if you're working with people in person, you're going to be working with a lot of general population people, because they're the people that they need the accountability of someone waiting for them at the gym to show up to. Mm-hmm. They need someone to make the gym feel like a safe place to them. And you know, because they come to the gym and they're like, I don't know what to do. All this is foreign to me. Mm-hmm. So having somebody there that's like, this is how you do a chest press, this is how you do a barbell squat, and to watch them through that and watch them every time to make sure they're safe, makes them feel safe. Those people are going to be the people that you're going to be doing the basic stuff. You're going to be like, all right, we're going to get as much work done as we can in an hour, and we're going to do it with all these things that might not be the most optimal thing in the world for a strength athlete or for a bodybuilder, but they're certainly optimal for somebody who wants to work out 3 times a week and improve their health and body composition.
Yeah.
And then when we have the online clients, if we're branching into that, then those are the people, they don't need accountability, at least to show up to the gym more often than not. They don't, you know, need someone to make the gym their safe place. You know, no one's going to hire an online coach if they're afraid to go to the gym, you know. Those are the people, they're generally a bit more serious, and they want those finer points to really kind of go from like the average person to the hobbyist bodybuilder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or active bodybuilder even.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Most of the time I feel I have to rein them in a little bit. Yeah. Be smart with everything, the intensity techniques, the wanting to train to failure all the time. So definitely, that's a good point. But man, I feel like we had some great conversation there. Some good points made. That was a good way to close it out too, with that last point you made. So appreciate it.
That's a great talk.
Oh yeah, definitely. I want to put everything that you got going on out there from an audience to check out and support those. So where can the audience find you if they're looking to support Trevor Fullbright?
Yeah, so I just have an Instagram. It's Trevor X Gage, TrevorXGage, and it's mostly just going to be pictures of me lifting and pictures of my dogs. but I pretty much just leave a Q&A up all the time. So and drop me questions, and I love to answer those. So always reach me out in there. And like you mentioned, if you want to watch the video and see some fun training, there's currently one video on RP's YouTube. And within the next few weeks from now, there should be some more videos coming out. So if you want to laugh at my pain, feel free to watch those and come make fun of me.
Yeah, guys, I'll say, please, I really appreciate it if you went, supported Trevor, followed his page, drop him some questions every now and again. And I'm really looking forward to those videos. There's a podcast up on Renaissance Periodization from maybe a year or two ago that you did with them. So definitely go check that one out to hear more about kind of like the backstory and the huge weight loss accomplishments that you had. So very cool story overall. Really, really cool guy to have in your corner, connected through social media. He might not be physically with you, but do really appreciate you, Trevor. Thanks for taking time to talk once again on a Saturday night. Appreciate the dedication and everything. So
yeah, man, thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for listening. Do my quick YouTube and Spotify, Apple podcast thing. But if you're watching on YouTube, really appreciate y'all. If you hit me with a like and subscribe, share the video around, because I feel like we made some great points. If you're on Spotify or Apple podcast, share it around with all your friends, and then leave me a 5-star review for these stellar guests that we got. So appreciate you all once again for listening. Thank you, Trevor. And we will catch you in the next episode.